We are going to discuss what is white hydrogen and how that can transform the realities of the transport industries in Europe. So let me start with you, Emmanuel, and if you can do a bit of explanation on what do we mean when we talk about white hydrogen and what is so important.
Well, so to make it very simple, does it work?
Is the microphone working for Emmanuel? No,
it's not working.
I think it's for me that works, but for Emmanuel. Thank you. Yeah, much better.
We good? Yeah. Yeah. Now we are. Now it's working. So now it's going to be even shorter. So let's introduce it. Yeah. So what we're working on with my team is actually getting the opportunity of what we call white or natural hydrogen, which is the native hydrogen that you can find within the ground directly, a little bit like gas, if you want, natural gas. And it exists. That's about exploring this and finding this close to a market. And the power of this, right, is to get this at the surface with significant quantities, super cheap, like 4, 5, 6 times cheaper than green hydrogen equivalent. So I guess then for off-takers and for different industries make a lot of sense, right? That's a cost issue. We all know that hydrogen actually is a cost issue when it turns to decarb, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So to put it clear, so green, gray, pink, blue, all these hydrogens, they need a transformation. You produce the hydrogen. Is white hydrogen more like extractive industry? It is already there, or is also like you need to produce it, you need to transform it?
No, so to be clear, this one is not to be manufactured.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay, you extract it.
Perfect.
So at some point, we believe this is a very obvious way to kill the green premium for being clean with hydrogen, right? So because you don't need to use energy, you don't need to use water. So that's literally something that is becoming super cheap and which is a huge opportunity at the surface. Yeah.
Perfect. So that leads me to, because Europe and Europe industry is currently facing a competitiveness issue, like with energy prices going up and also supply chains being more expensive and more stranded in some way. So James, do you think like this increase in white hydrogen and as Emmanuel has just said, like with lower cost than other types of hydrogen, will increase European competitiveness and industrial resilience?
It'll definitely help on the transport side. We need to see hydrogen at a cost that's similar to diesel at the very least. The companies that the transport companies, many of them are really small margins. There is no room to increase on that price. So we're really looking forward to white hydrogen, but we have to fill the gap, and there are a few ways that that is happening. So we're seeing the price of hydrogen coming down slowly. If you want to cover it now, we can, or do it a bit later.
Let's talk about cost a bit later. I also wanted to ask you, Andreas, as Bosch, so like a giant European manufacturer on chemicals and other type of industries. What do you expect like for hydrogen in terms of like how it will help the industry move forward?
Yeah, so let's start to differentiate a little bit the technology. So if we use this hydrogen, and it's heavily welcome if there is hydrogen from these sources, and if we could reduce the price at the filling station, this is extremely helpful. And we have two possibilities then for the hydrogen. On one hand, the fuel cell application inside a truck is also a very good solution. And on the other hand, the hydrogen engine. And sorry for this hard wording. I think we should stop this silly discussion in Europe and also in UK that there is only one technology, battery electric today. If we want to catch this net zero CO2, we need all technologies. And here, starting with battery electric trucks or battery electric passenger cars. But also on the truck side, we need the fuel cell and we need the hydrogen engine. And in the end, we need also, or for some applications, the liquid renewable fuels. And once again, we should stop this discussion. This is not helpful. And look, worldwide, nobody is discussing only one technology. Also in China, they are looking for all technologies. And first, look at the use case and then decide what's the right technology.
That leads me perfectly to my next question. It was going to be to you, James, and I wanted you to discuss how this white hydrogen, especially given that it has lower cost, as Emmanuel had just said, to other types of hydrogen, how does compare with electric vehicles or battery electric?
The great advantage of what we're doing with hydrogen internal combustion engine is that we're able to bring the prices down to something similar to what a fleet would normally be spending today. All fleets around the world work with a measure which they call the total cost of ownership. And total cost of ownership includes the total price of the vehicle and of the fuel that you're using. Now, by using a hydrogen solution, particularly on the engine side of it, we actually get to the stage where we have a total cost of ownership very similar to, can get to a total cost of ownership very similar to diesel. So you have to take the whole package in, really, rather than just saying electric or the battery side of it or the supply of electricity. You've got to look at the whole. If you take a battery, you need electricity, you need infrastructure. If you take hydrogen, you need the engine, or you need a fuel cell, you need the fuel, and you need the infrastructure. So the way to really look at it is to look at what it's actually costing the fleet as a whole package. And so we focus on the TCO, and we're seeing now that we are able to get to somewhere like diesel by 2028, which is a massive step forward, which we won't be able to do with batteries in the same way. With electricity, because of a number of reasons, but it's coming along.
It's coming, yeah. 2028 is just around the corner.
Yeah, perhaps let me add some additional arguments. So during this conference, we often talk about resiliency and also different supply chains. And this is another benefit for the hydrogen engine because there is no lithium, no cobalt, nickel, rare earths inside. So this is made out of steel and aluminum. And I think if we talk about resiliency, these are very hard arguments for the hydrogen engine.
Yeah, especially now that we're having this conversation around the security of critical minerals and where are they coming from and the supply chains that are extremely concentrated mostly in China. So moving from that, I think it will enhance European security and European energy security. Talking more about Europe, Emmanuel, which countries in Europe are the best positioned for this white hydrogen production?
Well, it's of course coming back to the potential of a resource down the ground, right? So the benefit of getting something which is by definition sovereign, because you cannot take the benefit of something and move it, because you can send the technology elsewhere, right? So you take the benefit of something which is emplaced locally, right? And well, as a geologist, the good news that we do have is Europe is a very good place when it is about exploring this resource. That's not absolutely everywhere because you need to get the good mixture of, let's say, geology down the ground, right? But what the team and I developed actually was a clear way, a technology that locates where you can get these conditions at the same place and where you can get this opportunity, right? And when we run this across only part of Europe, we found 30 different places already that we're exploring. We deploy the technology and we start to get an estimate of the resource that we can get after the first stage of exploration. And when we do our job, in one single reservoir, for instance, you can get the access to 1 million tons in place. Mm-hmm. when you make a drill hole in this specific location, that's in Europe, right? That's not in the middle of nowhere. So you're always close from transportation network or infrastructure or off-takers. But when you make the drill, if you get like a pocket of gas down there and you make your calculation to estimate the quantities that you can get at the surface, we are speaking about tens of thousand tons per well unit per year. That's not ridiculous, right? So, and literally, we are speaking about one single reservoir.
Yep.
You can get different reservoir per zone. And we're just mentioning that just for the Western Europe, we locate already 30 different locations. So make the multiplication. So you get like this sovereign large quantity, and then you can, you can literally get the benefit of it in terms of production nearby where you need it, right? So what we are doing is to combine exploration and then a market reality at the surface to match them both. So you have a demand, you have off-takers, and then you have the possibility to get this resource at the surface with those rates.
And it's self-generating.
And self-generating.
This is the other thing, because it's always coming back. It's not like oil, which just, once
and also you solve the problem of renewable at some point, because you have a permanent production, right? So you can stop it, open it. So if you put this in a mixture of production of clean hydrogen, right? First of all, because it is super cheap, in a mix of hydrogen of sources, you are controlling the price. So you can obviously decrease the global price, right? So that's, of course, very good for the off-takers. And you can solve the issue of intermittency, right, of production at the surface. So that's something which is very useful. But then you need to locate where it is, right?
Yeah. But what we then need to do is we need to get it to places where we can use it.
Exactly.
And this is where, for the transport side of life, and for we need to find ways that you can ship it. It's shipped down the main pipelines and comes out to where we can use it. But it makes it very, very, very cost effective. And this will come start seeing it in 5 years, 6 years' time.
This reality, we are planning to drill the first reservoirs by end of 2027, beginning of 2028, right? We are doing our job to do this, and that's really doable, right? Like in France, like in, let's say, Eastern Europe, Spain, different places, also Middle East. So that's something which is very easy. I mean, the problem is certainly not to drill and to produce. Our problem is much more to locate and estimate the reserves, right? And then you can answer to a market if you are able to fit the resource that you're locating, so the exploration, with the demand and the off-takers.
And in terms of like transport infrastructure, like midstream, like pipelines and etc., is that infrastructure that will have to be built new, or is like natural gas infrastructure, for example, can be reused or repurposed?
Again, I mean, let's say we are very opportunistic from this point of view, right? When you are exploring this, that nature does, right? You are opportunistic, but also with the transport, because if you get already like a network backbone, you can literally take the benefit of it. You can mix it with natural gas, for instance. That's totally possible. Then you can separate it at the end, so then you can transport it over long distances. But I mean, also, you need at some point to be, I mean, you don't want to pay the premium for transportation. So the good thing of that as well is like you have a lot of different locations. And because the geology there, right, and essentially very often associated with mining, for instance, as they also need the molecule, then you have local benefit of it, right? So that's local as well. So transport, of course, is something which is important for you guys. Yeah. But it's just... Yeah, and imagine you put even a SAF factory just nearby your production plant. For SAF, the bill of hydrogen is 50% of the cost of production. The hydrogen, right? If you want to get clean. I mean, of course, if you combine them both, you're solving the problem. I mean, it was the previous panel and discussion, right?
Yeah.
But what we have to do, though, is get from where we are today to there. And right now, there are a lot of challenges. And
yeah, I was going to ask about those challenges, and I wanted to ask you, Andreas, and I will come back to you, James. You just mentioned that a problem was that we as Europe, we are focusing on one technology, and we need to be more open-minded and include different technologies. Do you see regulation as a barrier for white hydrogen or hydrogen in general to scale?
So let's start here with hydrogen for heavy good vehicles or for heavy duty vehicles. So there is a difference between EU and UK, and I don't understand this. In EU, and we fight for this very hard. I think this was in April 2024. The hydrogen engine has now the same level like a battery electric truck or a fuel cell. This is a zero emission vehicle. And please correct me, I'm not an expert here, but here in UK, from my knowledge, this is not a zero emission vehicle. And I don't understand this, why there is a big difference, because this is a zero emission vehicle. And yeah, perhaps at this point, the EU has the better solution.
Yeah, this is a major problem. The British government don't have a proper policy. They were going to do a policy in August last year. They were going to do a policy this month, and they've just delayed it again. There is absolutely no support at all for hydrogen internal combustion engines. They say it's because it's not zero emission. Well, sitting outside, if anybody wants to go and see it, there is an engine there, and it's got zero emission from the DVLA on the vehicle's transport. It's zero emission. They're saying that NOx is a problem. Brunel University have just written a report very clearly saying NOx is not a problem in the with hydrogen internal combustion engines, because we take it, what little there is, we take out anyway in the exhaust in the same way you do with diesel. So the British government definitely have to decide what they're going to do. But we're having to finance everything ourselves. We get no support. So we've just opened up in Italy so that we can move to Italy and we can actually start getting support, which is totally against our wishes. But we have no choice.
So perhaps I could add here a small detail. You talked about NOx, and yes, same opinion on my side. This is not a relevant source for NOx, even under urban conditions. And some presentations before, there was a discussion about particles. And I think this is the other critical substance. And if we look for particles, so a clear message. So if you compare the battery electric vehicle, and this sounds now a little bit strange, if you compare battery electric vehicle, a fuel cell or a hydrogen engine, we are at the same level for the particles, because the particles are not coming out of the tailpipe anymore. These are the particles from brake emission, tire emission, and road abrasion. And I think this is well investigated. This is comparable. So also here we should stop this discussion. This is not helpful.
And let's say that the red tape is removed. Will you be like now hydrogen and especially white hydrogen will be in a even field to compete, or is this you will also need like to adapt it to and to incorporate it to transport, or you also need like some subsidies or some like benefits in some other way?
There are a number of issues with transport, and it's the same for all the fuels. You need some infrastructure to actually move this stuff around. You need the distribution points as well as you need the technology on the vehicles. Technology on the vehicles now is pretty clear where it can go forward, and with the sensible government, that can go forward now quite quickly. But then you need the distribution so that the fleets can actually use it. And the big problem at the moment in Europe and the UK as well is that everything has been looking at the big trucks that need fuel on the side of the road. There is no fuel on the side of the road, therefore there are no big trucks. That's simplifying it significantly, but that is the case. And there's no fuel on the side of the road because there are no big trucks. So it's a circle.
Like a chicken and egg situation.
It needs a totally new look at the way that this is happening. And we believe that we've got a strategy which is now being picked up by many people, that we have to do what happened when petrol first came out.
Yeah.
The first time that people had cars, the rich people had cars, there were only one or two of them. So petrol was stored in the post office or in a hotel where they went for lunch. And when there was enough of them doing it, the AA in this country were the first ones. They set up the first petrol station, and they did that down by in Berkshire near Reading. Then somebody else did one somewhere in the Midlands, up in the north, in Wales, in Scotland, and very quickly there became a network. Once you got that network, more and more people used it, and it exploded. And we need to stop looking at doing it big everywhere, get it working in a few places, get it started. And that's the strategy we're working to, and we're finding that it's starting to really take a grip. And I think that will get us out there, and it will get this moving. So by the time Manu's got some fuel, he can make a lot of money because there'll be a lot of trucks running around. That's
Is it your dream?
That's what we try to do, yeah. But back to the regulation stuff, I mean, the real challenge is this, actually, also for us, right? Because as soon as we want to take permits, a bit like oil and gas, right? You take permits and then you want to develop it, you make your exploration duty. All of the countries in Europe, they are absolutely different, right? There is not one unique case. So you need to adapt always. It takes a lot of time. So for us, what is the main way to delay that transition to those, ready solutions is clearly the regulation, right? So that's where we actually need to push all together at some point, right? Across the value chain to make it happening. Yeah.
So let me add here an example and look once around over the borders of Europe. India, and they are following this idea of the hydrogen engine for commercial transport. And there is a clear goal. They want to be green, also with hydrogen in the future, but they start now. And there are a lot of public funded projects where they look how the hydrogen will work inside these fleets, and they show us how to do this. And this is India.
And it's going well, and therefore they're keeping the jobs in India. Okay. They will be expanding. The Chinese are expanding fast.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. You anticipated to me, Andreas. But yeah, which were the countries that were leading on this? So it's India. It's China. Any other country? Japan at the moment was like big in hydrogen. I think it has lagged behind. But which countries are you looking at as a model to follow?
I think it is not a question if they are the leader or we are the leader. So at the end, so we are an international company. We earn also our money in India. But on the other hand, there is a big chance, and you will show this with your fleet, that you could earn with this idea also here in UK money. But once again, look at India. They are open. There is no restrictions. It must be this technology or this technology. They look first what they need for this use case and then decide what the right technology. And here the hydrogen engine is the right technology.
Yeah, the UK, particularly Department for Transport, are electric. And you go to some of the meetings with some of the things attached to it, they're all electric. Mm-hmm. It is quite hard. But I'd just like to come back to that point I was making earlier there. Germany have seen it more than we have, is that if we don't do something now and actually get on with it in this country, the Chinese are going to move in. Look at what's happened with electric cars.
Electric, yeah.
The solar panels and that type of thing. And we are in the UK, and other places in Europe, we're world leaders in this. 2 years. I doubt it'll take more than 2 years. We're going to start seeing vehicles coming in, hydrogen vehicles coming in from China, which will start to compete. And we won't be anywhere near ready because we're being stopped by bad policy.
Bad policy. Well, with that warning note, I hope red tape gets removed here, and I hope in 2 years' time, when we come to the 13th annual Sustainability Week from Impact, we will be coming in hydrogen buses, and we will see hydrogen trucks on the road.
There's another major point, is that we've got a war going on at the moment. Well, we've got two going on at the moment. It's resilience. We can make hydrogen in this country. We don't have to rely on it being brought in from other countries. There's a bit of a way to go, but it's possible. Well, we can do it.
And in a cheap way.
In a cheap way, with white hydrogen. Yeah. Okay. Well, let me thank you again, Emmanuel, James, and Andreas for this very insightful conversation. I really enjoyed it. It was a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
And thank you all the audience.